Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. Before we get going, and you know where we're going, the hat on the right. Before we get going anywhere, though, you'll notice I'm not sitting in the recliner like normal. That's because I got myself a new gaming/desk chair. Let's show this bad boy off. This comes to us from Neo Chair and their Marvel collection. They have a whole bunch of different ones, and this one is obviously an Iron Man chair, rocking the red and gold. You'll see there. We got a Stark Industries lumbar pillow that's removable. These straps you can undo them. Also a nice pillow. And you'll see if you take the pillow off, where the straps go are these kind of two hole entries. But if you look at it, looks like the top of Iron Man's helmet, man. You got the eyes right there. The markings there, and then obviously the arc reactor in the middle here with the kind of what feels like his armor. It's a really, really dope chair. And what's really awesome is that it reclines like a full flat 180 degrees. We'll show this now while I'm talking, and has a thing that kind of kicks out so you can put your feet up and like straight up like go to sleep if you wanted to. Super, super comfortable too. Really digging it, and so happy that it's finally here as the apartment still begins to come completely together. And that brings us to right now, this moment that we're in, which of course is something you know about. So why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in, spoiler free, into The Boys, Season 2, Episode 7, Butcher, Baker, Candlestick Maker. And this is just another fantastic episode from The Boys, and another episode that continues to show us what this show can do and be at its highest levels, man. And while they're not utilizing everything, we're not getting to those highest levels, that there are, some super powered folks doing super powered things that are not being utilized in this episode that I expect to see in the finale this week. But it does show you what it can be at its best, and that is just an absolutely brilliant show. And when you look at the beginning of this episode and the end, specifically the last 15 minutes of this episode, it's just all wow stuff. And we might as well start at the start, which kind of involves a 7. So that's where we'll start with this week. After, of course, you get to see all of my reactions.
And your plan would be?
Same as always. Squeeze the cunt that gives up the next cunt and kill the fuck when we're done.
No doubt you'd be happy with an unending cycle of brutality.
Okay, this
January? Is that a human hair? No.
Oh, that makes me happy. Oh! My God. What the fuck? Dude.
They could be looking at you.
Oh my gosh. Like what? Oh my. Oh. Stupid. Oh, what? Why isn't he fireproof? Oh my. Imagine he didn't die yet. Oh. Tell me that's got some electricity. Come on. Yes. Let's go. Oh, he is very dead. Oh no.
You man.
I liked it. oh, that's so no. Oh. 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 Oh, yeah. What a sequence. I suppose it's not over. Oh my. Holy crow. Oh my god. Wait, what? Oh! Oh, babe! Love her! Oh! Oh! We're gonna... What is...
Orange boy? He has a tree nut.
Wait, is that... Oh, I hope not.
You're a liar. You lied to me.
What do you mean?
You just flew me up and showed me. This house is fake. The neighbors are fake. You're fake.
One deserves to know the truth.
Listen, Jack, we can talk about this, okay? I know that you must feel confused and there are reasons for
No,
it.
just don't touch me. I hate you.
You have 5 minutes to make your opening.
Oh! What? Oh no! What? Oh! How have they not cut the roots off yet? Oh my god! Oh my god! Where? How did she? This is gotta be the what's her face check, right? Took him long enough. Oh my god.
What the fuck do we do now?
Oh my god. Oh, Friday, you can't come fast enough. Holy crow. Wow. Right? Like, that's all I got is wow. It will do anything. Holy I tell you, I cannot wait to talk about the end of this episode. But we gotta start at the beginning, because the beginning is a really eerie and, again, very poignant scene. It's one of these things that The Boys just continues to be phenomenal at, and that's speaking to things that are going on in the real world and showing them in ways that are particular or specific to the boys inside the boys, universe. And the opening scene is eerie, man, and it really speaks to misinformation and the constant use of misinformation and what it means when the constant use of misinformation is coming from the people that we either look up to or that we're supposed to trust. And when that misinformation is hitting the ears of someone who might be a little mentally unstable, culminates and comes to a head in a moment that you're just like, that's dark. And then that moment gets pulled right into yet another scene that kind of speaks to real world type things as we see Stormlander. Yeah, that's right, I'm saying it. See, we're either getting Stormlander or Homefront next week, or at the end of this week, rather, in the finale, somewhere in the finale, because this scene that kind of happens, it's a kind of like a small rally in the middle of the city, brings Stormfront and Homelander out together publicly. So I think we're probably going to see a Stormlander or Homefront name drop somewhere in the show. But that little rally plays right off that opening scene. It uses that opening scene in a way where the person that is directly responsible in some ways to what happens at the open talks about what happens in the open and talks about it as if she doesn't have anything to do with it, or doesn't realize that she might have played into what happened because of the things that she says. And that spawns into a Homelander speech that's very MAGA, very much like, let's make America great again. And then you get the same kind of bit from, Stormfront as she continues to spew the kind of radicalist type things that are going on. Like I said, if you think about what happened at the end of last week, all the stuff they're talking about, again, very real worldy and specific and interesting things being said by Eric Kripke and this creative team. And it's one of the things I love about the show is that it doesn't back down from talking about controversial things or doing things that could be conceived controversial. They don't shy away from anything, and specifically things that are going on in the real world. And what's crazy is when you see these things, which are very commonplace and apply to things that are going on right now, you got to remember, this show was done, I think before COVID. I think it might have been wrapped already on principal photography, and it's still super, super relevant. It's why the show is so good. But the stuff that we get from Homelander and Stormfront all episode is great. Coming off the rally, there's a little thing that kind of puts Stormfront off, so Homelander comes up with this genius idea right away. I'm gonna bring you home to meet my son. And that's where their storyline kind of lives all episode. And what's going on with that? Interesting stuff. And the addition of Stormfront not helping anything in those regards. And, it's interesting to watch Homelander continue to do what he's been trying to do from the get-go. And that's be in control of his son. And having Stormfront along seems to make him even more confident or to do the things that he probably shouldn't do. And there's some interesting stuff going on in all of those sequences. And that plays directly into the last 15 minutes, which is, like I said, genius stuff. The end of the episode is wonderful, and specifically how it ties everybody's storylines together and then, kind of brings it to a culmination. So you get to see that kind of stuff play out. But again, I just continued to love watching Anthony Starr and Aya Cash on screen together. And the things that they are building with those two characters in particular is scary. And it is gonna lead to stuff that, as Anthony Starr has mentioned, is gonna be a mind-blowing final episode. So I can't wait to see where we go there. As far as the rest of the 7 are concerned, we obviously have another, solid big episode for Starlight. She plays into all of the A and B storylines. And this week, kind of deals a little bit more with her mom, who continues to just be really stupid as she tries to get the acceptance of her daughter back. And that kind of leads to a not great situation for Starlight that involves Black Noir that teases something that we will get in those last 15 minutes with those two characters. But Starlight's storyline this week, it kind of puts her up against the wall. She's cornered. And watching her get out of being cornered is wonderful. The specific scene, you'll know, when something happens and she kind of looks up and is like, oh, here we go. I loved how they played all that stuff this week. And it also kind of gives a little nod to Superman. There's a room this week that is involved with her storyline that visually is very, very nice to look at. I really love the way everything was shot inside of this room. But the room itself, total nod to Superman in a way. And it was a really cool thing that I was like, oh, that's awesome. And like I said, when you get to the last 15 minutes and what plays into that scene in the last 15 minutes, you get something that's really cool. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And the way they're able to interweave different storylines to lead to moments like that, some of the genius of the boys. And then, of course, as I mentioned, Black Noir, we get a little bit of him. We get the most of him in the back 15 minutes, which we'll talk about later. And a little bit with Starlight. So not a ton with him, but some interesting stuff for him at the end. For sure, and some very funny stuff at the end that involves his character. Then, of course, we get more Maeve stuff. And Maeve's stuff this week is either really emotionally, gut-wrenching. There are two scenes in particular that, you just really, really feel for this character. And this character continues to be the most interesting. I think for me, there are a lot of really interesting things going on with Maeve this year, and we're only getting little tidbits of it, but when you add them all up together, she's had a really interesting story run, and I like where it could potentially be going. Her addition into the last 15 minutes of the episode brings up an interesting, I wonder what we're going to get with Maeve in the finale this week, but I certainly am looking forward to everything that goes on with that character, because I've just adored everything that she's been doing this year. And then the Deep and A-Train, they continue to be our comic relief, so to speak, because the Deep continues to be our comic relief, and the bit with them kind of involves a little reconciliation with those characters, but also tying into something that I think could play in a big way at the end of the finale. This whole church storyline with the Deep, while it's been a C storyline that's kind of been playing underneath all of the main storylines, I think where they're going and what they're hinting at specifically in this episode could play big into maybe the end of the finale, but I think certainly could be the main focus of next season. I think season 3 could definitely focus on the church as one of the main antagonists of the show. There's things they're setting up and pulling on where I'm like, they're doing things subtly, but I think there are characters that are involved here that are going to be even more important at the end of this season or somewhere along in next season. So while the Deep story continues to be comic relief to a degree, and A-Train really underplayed this week, just kind of played into the Deep storyline. But I think it could be some of the scarier stuff leading into season 3. We'll see how that plays out. Which brings us to the boys. And this week we get to, kind of ride with Grace Mallory, Mother's Milk, Huey, and Butcher. And what's going on with those four is great. It's the main part of the story, which is the fact that they've got Lamplighter from last episode willing to help out, willing to testify as we lead toward the hearings on Compound V. And this is a big win for them. They have somebody in their pocket now who will testify that can help bring Vought down. And that means that naturally they bring in the, political side of things and bring in Congresswoman Victoria Newman to help. Like, hey, look, this is what we've got. And she loves it. It's the best, witness that they have for their side of the case, but she mentions we need somebody who's even more connected. And immediately, it was almost simultaneously, Grace and Butcher kind of look at each other and we know somebody. And right as they're about to kind of head out for, what we think will be a Mother's Milk, Butcher, and Grace Mallory, adventure, because they sidelined Huey. Huey's still recovering from last week. Butcher gets a call from his mom and kind of has to go off on a side tangent. So we get this little family reunion bit with Butcher that I really dug. It gives us a really good insight into his character, why his character is the way he is, how he became possibly who he is, and what his family means to him. His family is one of those things that's kind of been sheltered from us outside of the fact that, he's been trying to get his wife back, and that loss, his personal family, his immediate family, but kind of seeing some more of, his actual family, and how that plays into his character. Really good stuff this week. And it kind of plays into the spiral that we've been seeing. Homelander and Butcher have been spiraling simultaneously. And while Homelander's spiral has led him to Stormfront, which now is giving her a bit of a manipulation on him where she can kind of use him to do what she wants to do because he was spiraling out and she can help. Butcher's spiral is more of a, I'm gonna burn it all to the ground, man. Like, you get this look in his eyes multiple times in the episode, and Karl Urban is so freaking good, where you're just like, this guy doesn't care anymore, man. Like, the only thing he cared about, he lost. So he ain't got nothing else to lose at this point. He will do whatever it takes to stop Vought and the Soup, specifically Homelander. And after he deals with his family stuff, he kind of gets pulled back into that Mother's Milk and Grace story. Mother's Milk and Grace go off to try to bring that person that they need, the person who's more inside of Vought than even Lamplighter was, to come and testify. And that, of course, would be Homelander's dad, Dr. Vogelbaum. And things don't quite go so well for Mother's Milk and Grace. And what's nice is it's a real small bit, but we get this moment between them right after that conversation that really gives us insight into those two characters and who they are right now. And it's real small, but really, really well executed stuff. Specifically from Layla Robbins, who just is so good as Grace Mallory on the show. But when Butcher kind of like, you know what, I'm going to get back in. I should have been there from the get-go, so I'll go take care of things. And we get this really wonderful convo between him and Vogelbaum, played by John Doman, who crushes in this scene, specifically with Butcher. And pretty much in all the scenes that he's in this week's episode. But the conversation between him and Butcher play into what Vogelbaum did with Homelander, and he kind of gives us his side of that story. And what's interesting is how Homelander was brought up is one of the things that that Homelander himself hates the most. It's one of the things he's trying to protect his son from, or at least that's what he's saying. Yet when you hear Vogelbaum talk about what he was doing and the fact that he was doing it for himself, it's very much reflected in what's going on with Homelander, and Homelander is actually acting like his dad without realizing it, I think. And the way the show can tie these things together is so good. But in that scene, we see Butcher be the most Butcher he can be. I mean, and it plays into how talented Karl Urban is, man, because he has this dead, cold, I will kill whoever I gotta kill to do what I have to do look in his eye, and then instantaneously, if somebody else comes into the room that can't hear that conversation and he doesn't want them to know he's that guy, flips it like a switch, man, and all of a sudden is personable and charming as anything. And I love watching Karl Urban do stuff like that, and it's one of the things that plays into that scene perfectly for his character. And then, like I said, when we get into the back 15 minutes, which kind of spin out from that specific conversation, that storyline, we get a look from Butcher where you're just like, oh, get me episode 8 right now, man. The look in Karl Urban's eyes at the end of this episode is just something to get you super, like, just a look alone gets you super excited for the finale of this season. And as far as the rest of the boys, we do get one brief moment with Kimiko and Frenchie, and they continue to be my favorite relationship in this whole show. And watching the evolution of that relationship, specifically with communication, has brought us some really gut-wrenching and heartbreaking moments and some really warm and wonderful moments. And this week we get one of those warm and wonderful moments, and Fukuhara and Capone are just so freaking good, specifically when they're on screen together. And while, again, just a small moment, one of the things that stood out the most in the episode, and it's again one of those things I love about the boys and how they can take smaller moments and make them so important and stand out so much that even when those characters are only in the show a little bit, you know that they were in the show because you feel them. And lastly, we have Huey, who, like I said, is on the mend, so he couldn't go with Butcher and Mother's Milk and Grace Mallory. So he gets put in charge of babysitting Lamplighter. Lamplighter is the key witness. They can't lose him. They need someone to just kind of watch out for him. And you get some absolutely wonderful things from these two characters. I love watching Jack Quaid and Shawn Ashmore on screen. Shawn Ashmore, brilliant add to the group. And this storyline in particular and what they've asked him to do with Lamplighter just sets up so many funny moments. Like, Huey's in a weird place anyway, and now he's stuck with this guy Lamplighter, who's in an even weirder headspace, and he plays into some real life stuff where, celebrities and even superheroes have porn parodies in real life. So there should be no shock to us that there are porn parodies of the Seven. And he kind of forces you to watch some of that stuff. And it just creates some wonderful moments between the two of them, and also allows Lamplighter and Huey both to utilize stuff from those moments for some wonderful metaphors as to what Lamplighter thinks he is and how Huey can utilize that very same thing to his advantage to get Lamplighter to do what he needs to do. Because their adventure together becomes an adventure. They see something on TV that sparks Huey to be like, oh shit, we have to go into action and go do something, but nobody's answering that can help. And Huey's on the mend, so he kind of convinces Lamplighter to go with him, and they end up at Vought. And that whole stretch is just genius, and it's the thing that kicks off that last 15 minutes. They kind of, Lamplighter has said he knows where he thinks something is going on, and he can take Huey there. And really, he's doing something for himself. And when they get to that place, that kind of kicks off this final 15 minutes I keep talking about. And you get some stuff that you just don't see coming or would have even thought to think would be a thing. And it's wild, dude. Like, the last 15 minutes is so good. And Huey's storyline directly intersects with Starlight's, which kind of plays into that Starlight Black Noir stuff that we were talking about in the last 15 minutes, which is great, dude. That whole set piece is just wonderful and fun to watch. And you just sit there going, oh, it is dramatic. You're on the edge of your seat. Everything about the last 15 minutes is like on the edge of your seat stuff. And you kind of spin out all of that on a lighter note, which is funny. But it allows the show to transition itself to where it needs to go. So we get to wrap up things with Stormlander, Stormfront, and Homelander. Telling you the Stormlander thing's going to stick. And we kind of get to see the conclusion of all the boys stuff, and that leads us directly into those hearings. In the last 5 minutes of this episode, whoa. Like, just whoa. And sets us on a stage for the finale that I'm like, I cannot wait to see where we head next. And like I said, also provides us a moment where we're able to watch all of our characters react in real time the way that we are reacting watching what they're watching. It's just some genius meta stuff, man. Like, the Eric Kripke and this creative team are just so smart, and I cannot wait for the finale. The question is, can you? What did you think of the penultimate episode of The Boys this season? Like I said, another one of those episodes that has everything working for it. So what was standing out to you? Whose storylines were your favorite? What are you hoping for in the finale? Like I said, I think the church is going to play into that storyline somehow, specifically maybe at the end, which could be setting up things for next season. But where we're going, I can't wait to see what happens. So I'm desperately wondering what you guys are thinking. So please leave all your comments about this episode down below. Look forward to talking to you there. As always, if you enjoyed this episode of the C-Man Cinema Sit Down, this review, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out, show a little support for the C-Man, you haven't done it yet, well, come join the C-Maniacs, baby. Hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, we'll hopefully be talking about the finale real soon of The Boys. I have been the C-Man. I am signing off. Peace. Well, you guys are still here. You must be looking for some more content. Well, don't worry. C-Man's got you covered, man. You got videos like this guy and this guy. And if you haven't yet, and you want to come check out all the C-Man goodies, join the Cinema Sit Down Squad, man. Hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the little bell down below that, too, so you can get alerts every time I make new videos.